You ask, we answer. We are doing another Q&A as everyone enjoyed the last one, more specifically around PEDs. So we had some other questions come in that, of course, there's PED questions, but also a variety of topics around programming pull, for instance, and even using some nutrition aspects. And then, again, PEDs, like we all love to talk about. So, Luke and I, we just want to dive in. We enjoy doing like the quick fire questions and try to give you a lot of value back. So that's what we're going to dive in today, guys.
Yeah.
Luke, how are you doing?
I'm great, man. Life's good. Work's good. We've got so much positive going on with the courses, and the coaches are just killing it. Show season's about to get started, and we got a ton of athletes on the team that are going. So momentum's high. I'm just loving every second of it, man. It's a lot of fun to do my job. So just, you wake up every day looking forward to what crazy physique you're going to get sent to from the team. Whether it's, Darren, Alex, Neto, Colton, whoever's sending it, it's really awesome to see. So, it makes for a lot of fun on the day to day, solving all these different problems with these coaches and putting some killer athletes on stage. So, I think that's part of the reason I like these quick fires, because it's like solving people's problems in the here and now. So let's just dive in, man. Let's hit this first question. Do you think there is a place for T3 in the off season?
Yeah. And so around thyroid hormone use, and really in prep or off season, it comes down to just basically looking at your lab to begin with. And that kind of decides on the need relative to where your labs are. Usually I hear people ask about T4 in the off season that are using growth hormone. There was an idea a long time ago that, growth hormone lowers T4 levels, but growth hormone increases peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. So in turn, you might see a little bit lower free T4 in the serum, but you'll actually have increased T3 levels, and you might see an acute rise in TSH. Also, just using growth hormone, if you had like a pre-existing thyroid issue, it might bring it about and just more expose it rather than create it. So if you already had a predisposition to being hypothyroidism, you might see that if you're using growth hormone. But back on the question of like using T3 or not, still like monotherapy T4 of levothyroxine is still like the first line therapy for hormone replacement, as we have to consider, like in the endocrine world, in the Western medicine world, that you try to get people to just be adherent. So if you have something you only take once a day versus multiple times a day, it's a lot better route. T4 has a relatively very long half-life, nearly a week. So you can get steady levels easily within a week's time. And once a day dosing can work really well. The issue kind of comes about if you have someone that could have limitations within T4 to T3 conversion, or maybe someone that actually has a little bit higher needs than what T4 could provide solely. And that's where the conversation around adding in a little bit of T3 might come about. And if you go into like beyond, if you're meeting with your like general physician or your endocrinologist and looking at someone in the anti-aging world or the wellness clinics, a lot of times they're using desiccated thyroid like Armor or NP thyroid, which is a combo of T4, T3, or they might be using something that has been actually compounded with adjusted amounts of T4 to T3. And in result wise, you really could get the same lab effects using either one. However, some people just subjectively feel better using the combo therapy. So that's kind of where it differentiates. Now, I like combo therapy going into prep because you see a lower T4 to T3 conversion as you're dieting, or even if you had like a monotherapy, being able to bring in a little extra T3 if you see that conversion starts to get limited and you're trying to uphold physiological amounts of T3. But long story, not short, is it purely depends on your lab work. Go off that. Don't make assumptions and just use T3. It's not necessarily going to like keep you leaner or something in the off season. Yeah. You're just looking for like a normal physiological amount.
Yeah, I think the mistake with this that you often see is people expect that, for people that do use it in the off season, they expect that replacement therapy will sustain them throughout the entirety of the contest prep with no expectations to have to increase any variable of it, which is not going to be the case. There's certainly going to still be adaptations that occur that might require you to increase your dosing or add in T3 or whatever that might be. Multiple ways to go about it. That'd be kind of like the last little caveat is if you do have the need for replacement therapy based on symptomology and labs in an all-season setting, be aware that that doesn't mean you won't see adaptations across a contest prep.
All right. Next question. Thoughts. I love questions that start about thoughts. So thoughts on everyone taking all the new peptides. And there's a few questions kind of lumped within this around other peptides that are out there, right? So IGF-1, LR3, they brought up SLU-PP-332, which it's actually not a, it's a molecule. I don't know if you really want to classify it as like a peptide hormone, but it's just like this synthetic molecule. Mm-hmm. But I guess, and people are probably bringing up like MOTS as well within the conversation. But again, some of these are peptides, some of them are not peptides. However, there's a huge exploration right now of all these different compounds.
Is it fair to answer that I don't have thoughts on it yet? Like I keep up with it. And the reason I keep up with it is in case there's something intriguing enough that I could see the value in it. But I've yet to see something that doesn't feel like chasing polypharm. And polypharm in the bodybuilding world is something that allows for people to get the most out of their process when it's like deployed correctly and we understand these off-site actions of some of these compounds. But I do think we start to get into the peptide world and we're chasing so many off-site mechanistic actions and lower efficacy versions of that for the majority of them, that in the realm of the majority of physique-based processes for competitive bodybuilders, I don't see a lot of utility. Now, some of these, like certainly I could see outside of that realm potentially having some fit, but big needle movers for me, not yet. But it intrigues me. I keep up with it because I want to be aware if something comes to market that does feel like a game changer, but I don't know that I have thoughts on it because nothing has changed the game for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of them have been kind of sensationalized as being with the novelty of them and the excitement around research and mechanisms of action and potential. And so like, for instance, SLU-PP-332 is, we'll call it SLU for simplicity. We basically just have rodent data on it. So there's not even human data to be able to translate that into what should a dosing protocol even be? What does safety long-term even look like? What does it look like when it's combined with other drugs like we're using in bodybuilding? And you could very well have, just because it's not a human approved, an FDA trialed drug, right? Gone through all the clinical rigors of testing, that it's not safe, but there's kind of a question mark there. And then around actually translating it to the effects in humans, like, is it that large of an effect or not? With SLU kind of being this exercise mimetic. So it could increases for one mitochondrial efficiency. A lot of people get improved endurance capacity and increased fatty acid oxidation with it, improved insulin sensitivity. And I've heard people speak to it like it is a game changer. Some insights is that I've known some people that actually use this that are very, very close to me that I have eyes over. And at least in my experiences thus far, I have seen it to be very lackluster. And I would have multiple other things that I would deploy way before this. And thinking back on these people calling it a game changer, what I would look for, especially with peptides, is if there is a motivation behind pushing something like this. So if there's someone that is connected to a peptide site and they say use code John20 for discounts on your SLU. Maybe there's another motive there of trying to really sell these because someone's making money off of them.
Yeah.
Or there's just, hey, I need to sell the excitement of new things coming out because I can only talk about Test Primo GH for so long. I need some new things, right? And that's not to diminish any information that's out there around it. Like, we should discuss these compounds because they're of interest. But like Luke said, I would want a lot more information out on them before I decide to implement them already amongst a list of polypharmacy that we're already utilizing within bodybuilding. And again, what I said in my experience is that SLU so far looks to be very overrated in my opinion. Again, I'm not the only opinion, that's just opinion. And same with a lot of the other compounds like IGF-1 LR3. IGF-1's fairly overrated for its effects. I think a lot of the main effects you're going to get with using growth hormone is direct from growth hormone. And with the idea around IGF-1 LR3, it's doesn't have a strong binding affinity, the IGF-1 binding proteins. So you kind of have the problem is like you have a compound that can just have a more of a systemic effect versus localized effect, which I find that scary for around organ size increases. And again, this is another compound with just a ton of lack of human research around it. And still, GH trumps all of these. I think the ones that have the best data around are maybe MK677. The ones with the most interest would be BPC or TB500 as far as these healing type peptides. But again, even those like GH trumps them. It's like these are just, the B team coming in because they're more accessible for some people. But anyway, that's at least some initial thoughts around these. Could those thoughts change in the future as more data comes out? Sure. But at least as of right now, these are not things that I would put weight into, and also things that I would not be interested in like trialing myself.
Yeah. One last thing. It's like you see this with like the methylene blue stuff too, but you know what else improves mitochondrial efficiency?
Exercise.
Exercise and sleep.
Your big ticket items. Yeah.
Like, Jesus, guys, like, can we not forget that these things improve that? Like, let's just focus on like what we can actually show large improvements in efficacy. That's where my head goes with it currently. Like, if there's something that comes out that does game change, I'll detail it out and go into it and see utility in it, but I'm just not there yet.
All right. Next question. How much fruit and veggie should we be eating no matter the phase?
Yeah. That's a tough question. I tend to set like minimums at around 200 grams of each. The veggie piece is a little bit fluctuating based on like phasic because you get in prep and like I'll allow that to kind of creep up quite a bit, 300, 400 grams kind of throughout the day with food coming down for satiety purposes and keeping fiber intact and micronutrients intact. But minimums that I put for most people that are on the macro side of the equation with coaching is 200 grams of each.
Yeah, that for sure would be a minimum. If you looked at like current US like health recommendations, it's like 3 to 5 servings of fruit and veggies per day, which a serving of fruit or veggies is around 100 grams, depending on the fruit or veggie. So you're looking at 300 to 500 grams ish. So definitely like at the minimum, dear Lord, just hit these, right? Hit those at the bottom end. But if you could hit a gram total of all of them together for the day, that would be pretty ideal to not have enough fruit veggie diversity to cover a lot of your micronutrient needs, to get a diverse amount of fiber. So yes, total fiber is very important. Also soluble and insoluble, but there's also different types of fibers within soluble and insoluble fibers that do a lot for gut health. And so that's why we absolutely would want a variety of those items. All your different type of strains of gut bugs that are really healthy use different types of fibers. So if you want a really healthy microbiome community, eat a lot of a variety of fiber sources. Now, where this kind of can flux a bit is, the goal is the goal, right? And for bodybuilding, trying to put on a lot of size in the off season is kind of the main goal there. So if you're running into limitations around food volumes from high amounts of voluminous veggies, it's a time hey, we might need to lower these down for a bit of time and kind of accept that, but just moving to more like dense, condensed or higher starch veggies, and even maybe moving to like dried fruits, which a third the weight of a whole fruit would be counted as still a veggie fruit serving. So like 30 grams of raisins would count as doing like 100 grams of grapes. So we might have times where those numbers kind of shift. Then, like you said, in prep, Luke, those veggies might creep up some. I try to maintain the fruit amount and lower the other starchy components in the diet as we go through. And then we're going to have some times where, hey, a lot of this might get pulled out just at the end of prep, just to control like bloating, distension before going on to stage. And I don't mean bloating, distension like you have some weird GI problem that you need a gut health specialist, that you just like these foods just cause volume expansion and we got to lower it. Right. And then on that point around gut issues, we have the rare individuals that might need a bit more modulation of these items, or some that are just very intolerant to them, where there might be some restrictions in place. But as a generality, I think we cover that.
Yeah. On to the next.
Yeah. Okay. What are the basic vitamin supplements for bodybuilding?
There's so many ways to go about this. Like the interesting part about, there's a lot of companies that make some great like mixed products. And so like I'll use those depending on where someone's located and if they have access to it. Just to like, I have no brand affiliation, so I'll just spit these out. Trained by JP makes some great ones. I love Heart with Vital Support. I do tend to go the route with Morphogen. Morphogen has some great products as well. Prime, and there's another one they have that's really good. Their kidney product's really good. But as far as like the minimums, basic vitamin supplements, like I wouldn't even classify whey in that category. My head goes to health supplementation, but creatine, make sure that you've got a multi on board. More than likely a vitamin D3 is going to be needed because most people are going to be deficient in that. And then health supplementation based off the things that you struggle with on lab work. And then there's like a whole gamut list of that we could go through. And then the more budget you have available, the more of those things that you're going to take for precautionary purposes. Remember, supplementation is not as efficacious as medication, but it can be helpful.
Yeah, I think, right. Some of the like combo products are very convenient for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some people might want to be more specific with their dosing or the product that they need to take, then because sometimes you find a blend, you're like, it's not quite right on that dose, or
Yeah.
I don't need that necessarily.
Yeah.
So again, like with supplements, they are meant to supplement the diet. So if you're not, log into Chronometer, see what you're hitting for your micronutrients, and then fill in the gaps from there. But common gaps that need to be filled, because that's what I think of, like the basics. If we're not covering these by the diet, these are probably the first things that we should be going in place, which you absolutely could do a multi, kind of just does a shock on blast of all your micronutrients, vitamins and minerals to cover those needs. But from there, I would say an omega-3, as that one could just be a hard one to get for everyone daily.
Yeah.
And then like you mentioned, vitamin D3, which I would pair that with K2 as well. Magnesium can be a struggle for a lot of people, and it shows even in athletic populations, we do have higher magnesium needs, which I would do something like a magnesium threonate around bedtime, especially if you have issues with sleeping, or even magnesium glycinate would be a viable option from there too. Creatine monohydrate, just because it does so much. It's so evidence-based around muscle, but also even for brain health too. And then I really like curcumin as well. That's kind of starting to jump into the realm of maybes, but the expansive effects for like an anti-inflammatory aspect for the whole body, and a lot of health benefits around it. I think it's a one to have in. Outside from there, I think that's when you jump into like the real a little bit more nuanced to the enhanced bodybuilder realm of supplements that would need to be in place.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 100%.
Okay. Next question.
When should I take glutamine, before or after training, John? Or at all?
Yeah, you should take it at neither time. So glutamine for a while was really popular.
Yeah.
And it was the thing to be taking all around training, which with glutamine, I mean, the thing about it is that we get a ton of it out of, if you're on a high protein diet, most of your glutamine is utilized by the enterocytes as a fuel source. And so a lot of that does go to the gut. That's why a lot of people now take it actually for gut health. It's around 15 grams per day is utilized by the gut and has a big component around the immune system. So some people are just saying, oh, for gut health, I take 15 grams of glutamine first thing in the morning. But where this glutamine research really comes from is from the clinical side of issues with inflammatory bowel diseases like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's or other GI issues. And in this inflammatory state, glutamine has a huge role as its needs increase, but also has some components around just improving like the tight gap junctions in the gut and preventing like quote unquote leaky gut. Some people hate saying that term, but anyway, in those conditions, it has great roles for GI health and inflammation. But if you don't have those issues, well, there's no increased need for that. And then around, as far as building muscle, you're going to have plenty of adequate amount of amino acids if you're just following a high protein diet. So do you really need to be taking glutamine is the thing. And around training, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you don't have some type of inflammatory gut issue, it also doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's one of those supplements what I would say to save your money and just get some whey protein and just utilize your whey.
Preach.
Yeah.
Ditto. Retweet. Move on.
Okay. Pharma versus generic GH on quality and insulin resistance.
Oh, Lord.
The war continues.
It
used to be a big deal, right?
Yeah. I kind of want to just send them to the Kurt Havens podcast that we did that kind of goes into that in depth about all the potential issues. But a lot of this has to do with getting your GH tested and making sure that it's actually the right amino acid sequence, all of these kinds of things. I mean, there's a lot of great generics on the market. I think you can see some pretty efficacious usage from generic GH. You've even seen like probably the prices dropped over time. I think arguably Pharma is probably going to be your best bet if we don't dive into the weeds of just like the full conversation we had on the podcast with Kurt. But, man, I just want to direct them there. It's like probably the best thing to do because we build the whole conversation out about the positives, negatives, what you should expect. Can you test for it? All that. Like there's like full in depth there.
Yeah. I think the quick takeaway is like, hey, if your GH is 100% GH, then it's going to have the same effects relatively as Pharma GH. Yeah. Without much differentiation, just from the anecdotal of using all of these things too. Yeah. That, man, it doesn't really differentiate. So no. It used to be that generics are real hit or miss. Who knows? Like, and now it's come so far that we have much better ways to test, availability to test, and just availability of better product that's cheaper too. Yeah. So back, when I was kind of getting into the pro ranks, it's like you just bought Pharma to make sure you had quality GH, and it was so expensive. Generics were like, I don't know, but now it's like, you can get like a tested generic that's of really good quality that's like a sixth of the cost of Pharma. So that's at least kind of where that all stands. But please check out the podcast with Kurt. Yeah. Go pretty heavy on the GH side there.
Yeah. Especially like the testing. Like I've had so many generics with clients that have tested so unbelievably. Like I hate the argument. It's just like make sure it's quality and tested and move on. All right. Struggling with how to program pull days, please help. Oh, wow. this person's struggling with their back development. Exercise for lower lats too.
Yeah, there was actually 2 questions in this Q&A about just specific to lower lats. So,
Yeah.
Well, with pull days, just a generalized structure is like I would just always start with a lat movement first. And if this person's more targeting around the lower lat, you're talking more about the vertical fibers of the lat, which are going to work good, more pulling from an overhead position and keeping the arm tight to the body. So you're going to look for some type of pattern that can keep you in that position. That could be a bilateral pull down with like more of a shoulder width grip. It could be a single arm pull down of some variation. So that would be your first movement to have like vertical lat fibers and prioritize that body part. You could then move you could go to an upper back from there if you need like some general balance and back development, which that's how I like to structure mine. I move to like an upper back based row. That could be a T-bar row, could be a prime extreme row, could be a chest supported incline row. But again, the idea is the elbow is a bit more flared out from the body. Then you could do something for lats again. Doing something for like the horizontal fibers, which would still elbow close to the body, doing a single arm row or a horizontal row. And then lastly, you might have something for even upper back. So you might have done something that was kind of a horizontal row with the elbows flared out a bit, but you could do something with the elbows flared out, lowering really low towards like bottom sternum, belly button area, which kind of hits towards that scapula retraction, upward rotation of more of a nearly like a shrug pattern. So this might be looking at like could do a seated cable row where your torso is leaned back, more like the 120 degree angle. So not upright, or even a hammer strength isolateral low row. Just something, the idea is the elbow path is moving back and upward and the grip is not quite as narrow. But that would fully cover like all the angles of training back. For lats, you have something overhead, vertical. For upper back, you have something with horizontal and then even a high, steeper angle as well. And then it just shift that order around priority. But Luke, right, it's not often we see guys with like huge lats and no traps. A lot of times it's a lot of trap and no lat. So programming lats first kind of makes a lot of sense. And it's also what's going to improve more of your stage shots than programming upper back first.
Yeah. And a little bit of equipment specific to not a lot of lat patterns load very lengthened unless you have like in the horizontal plane, unless you have like a Nautilus row or a gym shop row, or unless you have like a prime pull down for that lat prime pull down that I covered in a YouTube video. So I do like it earlier in the session because of that. Just a lot of mid shortened work for a lot of patterns. So
would you say in that case, like if you don't have those pieces, that when you get towards the end of your failure point in full range, to hit a few lengthened partials? Is that the application there of lengthened partials now?
I would get as much out of the full range as you could, because you're going to be able to initiate that rep and get it probably halfway or 3/4 of the way. And that shortened end range is just going to fatigue and it's going to be the heaviest, where this would be a place where I would implement that. The caveat here is you're just not changing the rep. Like, people think this is an opportunity to add a rep to the logbook and change form or change position or use momentum. Like, it should initiate the same way your first rep did, just it's not going to get all the way there.
Yep. Gotcha.
Love it.
Yeah, I think that would, be very balanced in programming to how you can start with the pull day. So, anyway, next question: training at 5 a.m. Should I split Anavar AM and PM? So, to add on, for just some context, let's say this person's taking 10 milligrams of Anavar, would be taking 5 milligrams in the morning, 5 milligrams at night, or what would be the application?
Yeah, I'm splitting it with, they train AM, PM, midday, whatever, very short half-life. Usually splitting that dose AM, PM. I do like one of the doses to be pre-training, so that would be like the one caveat. And so I do like in this scenario, 5 milligrams pre-training in the morning, 5 milligrams later in the afternoon or at night, and just kind of have that a little bit more coverage with that short half-life.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea with bodybuilding and hypertrophy is to take advantage of all the pathways you're stimulating for. And hypertrophy is more of this long-term thing that needs to take place, or rather just an acute flood of androgens around the training window to leverage some strength. So ideally, splitting it and keeping your levels more stable would be, again, big picture, this is getting nuanced, but get your total anavar dose in for the day and you're probably doing everything you need to. Mm-hmm. But I would say splitting it. If you're getting into like strength sport, that might change a bit with dosing a lot of it pre-training only. But again, that's a different application from bodybuilding.
Yep, 100%. Well, man, we've been 40 minutes. Do you want to hit these last few, or do you want to?
No, I think we'll stop there. So that just, these fly by when we're talking about them. So.
Yeah, they're so good. I love it.
Well, anyway, we appreciate everyone asking the questions and hope you got some value from it. If you have other questions, you're welcome to leave them down below, and Luke and I can tackle those on another Q&A. Until next time, we will talk to you then.